hello everyone, and welcome to Trilogy Metals Live Summit today, hosted by Six. We are joined today by Tony Giardini, President and CEO. Tony's going to walk us through a company presentation, and then after we will be accepting questions live. So as a reminder, you can submit your questions at any time on the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll get to them after the presentation. And as always, the summit is being recorded and will be available to watch afterwards on Six.com. But without any further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Tony.
Dasha, thanks very much. Glad to be back on Six, and I want to thank Six for hosting this summit. I'm going to talk to you about Trilogy Metals. Trilogy is listed on the New York and Toronto Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol TMQ. You can go to our website for more information on the company. It's trilogymetals.com. There's a full, longer version of a presentation that I'm going to be covering under our presentation tab. So today what I hope to do is really just give you a bit of an update on what's happening with Trilogy, take about 15 minutes, and then leave time for as many questions as possible on what's going on with the company and just the market dynamics associated with the metals that we're focused on. So for those of you that don't know, Trilogy is focused on the Ambler mining district in the great state of Alaska. And when I give you a bit more color on the projects, you'll see that we're talking about high grade in a great jurisdiction with very solid partnerships. And the metals that you can see on this page are the metals that are found in the deposits in the Ambler mining district. So we have cobalt, lead, copper, zinc, silver, and gold. Before I go any further, just want to draw your attention to the fact that I'll be making forward-looking statements as part of this discussion. And just as a summary page, this gives you an idea of what is contained in the Ambler mining district. So you can see there is a predominant amount of copper, almost 9 billion pounds of copper in terms of the indicated and inferred categories, significantly large zinc deposits, and gold and silver as well. And when I talk about high grade, I'm talking about the Arctic project, which is 43.4 million tons at an average grade of about 4.2% copper equivalent. I'm also talking about the bornite deposit, which between inferred and indicated is about 185 million tons at an average grade of 1.6%. As I mentioned, we're located in Alaska, in the northwest part of the state. The district has seen significant exploration upside and focus in the past, and we believe there continues to be significant upside in terms of just the potential to find more in and around Arctic and bornite, as well as other deposits. And then I'm going to speak about our partnerships, including our joint venture with South32, who has a half interest in the Ambler mining district. In terms of the balance sheet and shareholder base, you can see we're in a very good position. At a corporate level, we've got just under $7 million of cash. There's no debt. In addition, there's a joint venture company, which is 50% owned by Trilogy and 50% owned by South32. And that company has about $125 million in cash. So when we look at Trilogy's share of that cash, roughly $62 million, and the $6.8 million in cash, and look at our market cap, we're talking about an enterprise value of somewhere around $180 million. We've got large institutional shareholders, and there's meaningful management ownership. You can see who the shareholders are. We've got Electrum Group at 20%. They've been in the story from the beginning when this was spun out of Nova Gold in 2012. Paulson and Baupost have also been there from the start. Bernard Seltz purchased his stake in the public market. South32, in addition to owning a 50% interest in the Ambler mining district, also owns 11% of the stock, and then you can see some of the other shareholders. In terms of partnerships, I did mention strong partnerships. I'm going to talk a little bit about three of them. First is our joint venture partnership with South32. For those of you that don't know, South32 is a large Australian-based mining company. It was demerged out of BHP, which is the world's largest mining company, a number of years ago. And in 2017, it effectively took an option to invest $30 million in the Ambler mining district with a view of exercising that option to form the JV, which they did at the beginning of 2020. So in total, South32 has invested about $200 million in both Trilogy and the Ambler mining district. So having them as a partner is really helpful for us because we've got an established mining company, that it's effectively done their due diligence with respect to Arctic and the Ambler mining district. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening in the broader area as we move through the presentation. The second partnership is with our native partnership with NANA. And NANA operates in the northwest part of the state. It's a native corporation that represents 14,000 native shareholders. And NANA has the ability to participate in the ownership of any of the mines that are developed in the Ambler mining district, either through a direct ownership stake of between 15 and 25%, or through a net profit interest of 15% on mines that are developed. So having them as a partner is very helpful to us because essentially we're on native land, and having a native partner from an employment perspective, from a tax-based perspective, and having them there with a strong financial interest is going to be a very big key to our success in terms of moving the project forward. And then the last partnership is with the state of Alaska through their development agency called ADA. And ADA is focused on building a road into the Ambler mining district. That road was permitted in July 2020. So we're in a position now where we're advancing the detailed engineering associated with that road. And we should be coming out with a budget for the current year's program, which will be split between ADA and Ambler Metals in terms of the amount that will be spent on the project. We had each committed up to $35 million, so $70 million in total, to advance the development of a road, with the idea that the road construction will begin when we make an investment decision on the mine. In terms of the district and the area, this is the district that comprises a joint venture. And there's a number of different colors that are noted here. So the area in reddish brown is the original area that Trilogy Metals had, which was obtained from Kennecott mining in early 2000. And then the green area was the area that was contributed by NANA in 2011, when this Ambler mining district was effectively formed in 2012. So we put this large land position together, represents over 180,000 hectares, and a number of those targets that are there. Arctic is the advanced development project, Bornite is the advanced exploration project, and then there's a number of other historic resources that I'll speak to in terms of opportunities for further exploration. So anything that falls within this district is considered a JV owned asset. So it would be owned 50% by Trilogy, 50% by South 32, with NANA having the ability to participate either directly or through a net profit interest once investment decisions are made on the projects. This is where the area is located in the northwest part of the state. And to the top left, you see a mine called the Red Dog mine. Red Dog is the largest zinc mine in the world. It's operated by Teck on NANA land. And we're effectively modeling ourselves on the development of that asset. So like Teck, and Teck has a partnership with NANA. They also worked with ADA to develop a road and a port to advance this project and get it into production. So we're looking at exactly the same scenario where we have NANA as a partner, and we're working with ADA to develop a road that would allow us to connect to existing infrastructure in the state of Alaska. And as I said, having NANA and native support for the project will be very key to our ability to move the project forward. This is what's planned in terms of a transportation plan for the project. We're looking at a 211-mile road that would connect the Ambler mining district to the Dalton Highway, which is already built. That road would be a hard-packed gravel road, and it would be private industrial use road only, so it would not be used by the public. And the idea, of course, is that it would be a toll road, and so the cost of a road would be recovered over time as mines are developed in the district. And as I said, the road has been permitted, and what we're working towards now is making a development decision on the road. And the first part of that is really working towards the detailed engineering component, which started last year and will continue this year with the field program. And we'll be announcing what the budget for that program is shortly. The road will be built and operated by the state of Alaska, ADA, and the companies that will be using the road will pay tolls for the use of that road. It connects to the Dalton Highway, which is a 2-lane paved road that already runs through the state. And the idea would be that we would transport the concentrate by truck to Fairbanks, where there's an existing railhead, which would then transport the concentrate the rest of the way to Anchorage, where an existing port has already been built. So in many respects, a significant part of the infrastructure has already been provided for, and it's really about the last piece of a puzzle, which is the proposed Ambler access road. This is where the road would travel through, and you can see all of the different targets that are in the Ambler mining district. There's there's a black dot on the left, that's a spucker deposit owned by Teck, and then the Sun project is privately owned. Everything else is part of a JV, and those are targets that we're looking at to advance Arctic, and ultimately, when we look further down the road, to the development of Bornite. In terms of the economics of Arctic, we prepared a feasibility study in 2020. We prepared a pre-feas in 2017, and this was really an update to that. And you can see very strong economics based on the base case prices, which were the same as what we used in the pre-feas. So when we look at the NPV at 8%, it's a $1.1 billion NPV. Cash cost net of credits are 32 cents, an IRR of 27% after tax, and a very low capital intensity ratio. What's interesting, of course, is if you look at it in the context of a current price environment, with copper, zinc, gold, and silver all being significantly higher than the base case prices, you see that the NPV of this project jumps to $2.7 billion. This is all on a 100% basis, so this includes our share and South 32 share. And the IRR goes to 47% with negative cash costs of 53 cents and 1.3-year payback. So a very robust project. And this is assuming a 12-year mine life. We're confident that there'll be other opportunities to extend mine life in terms of other satellite deposits in and around Arctic. And so we're confident that that mine life will extend significantly beyond the 12 years. In terms of profitability index, this is a metric that's used to assess projects and really do a comparison of how projects look from a capital intensity perspective. So what you do is you take the total capital cost plus sustaining capital, and you divide it by the after-tax NPV. The higher up you are, the better. The further right you are, the better. So you can see where Arctic Trilogy Metals sits relative to other deposits that are out there. Some that have been developed, some that are in the process of being developed, and some of that are undeveloped. But this well, and it equates to what I had said earlier, which was the low capital intensity ratio that we see per copper equivalent ton. We're excited about starting the permitting process, and we hope to start the mine permitting process in March. We completed a permitting preparedness review earlier this year and late last year. So it puts us in a very strong position to kickstart permitting in March. We see permitting taking roughly 24 to 30 months. At the end of a permitting period, we'd be in a position to make an investment decision, which then would start the process of building the mine and putting ourselves in a position to commence operations roughly around 2028. In terms of the district itself and the potential, one of the exciting things about VMS deposits is that they occur in clusters. So when we look at some of the other significant VMS deposits in the world, whether you're looking at Flin Flon, Hokuruku, or Noranda, you can see just based on the details around this slide that the mine life has extended for decades and decades. Flin Flon 75 years, Noranda 85 years. So we feel that between Ambler and Bornite, we have the same opportunities to extend mine life for significant time period. But we're already blessed because we got 43.4 million tons at 4.2%. at Ambler, and we also have the bornite deposit, which on its own right now is about 180 million tons at an average grade between the inferred and indicated of 1.6% copper. When we look at exploration potential in the district, these are some of the targets that we're looking at. Those resources that are indicated as shaded in light blue are historic resources that are there. We conducted a drill program last year. We'll be going back out into the field this year. We've announced a $28 million program for 2022. So we're obviously focused on not just looking at the Arctic deposit and infill drilling, but also satellite deposits in and around Arctic and also bornite in terms of future opportunities there. This is one of the drill holes that we reported late last year. It's the third best drill hole that's ever been drilled at Arctic. So there's 170, when this drill hole was released, there were 176 drill holes. This is number 3. 20 meters at 12% copper equivalent. And you can see where that drill hole is, sort of right in the middle, and it shows all of the intersections between the grades and the width that was drilled, and just how the hole continues on. So we've got more drill holes that will be coming out shortly, and we're very excited about the continued exploration upside, not just from an infill perspective at Arctic, but at satellite deposits in and around the Arctic area. And as I said, we'll be reporting on those drill holes very soon. These are the specific details associated with the drill holes. As I said, you can go to our website where there's more information on the drill program and the exploration plans, not just at Arctic, but also at the bornite deposit. In terms of news flow, we're continuing to optimize the Arctic feasibility study, and that's being done at the Ambler Metals JV. And so that work is continuing, and what we're looking at is obviously some of the decisions that we need to make in terms of advancing the project, whether it's the location of infrastructure or looking at the tailings facility, the water storage facility, and those considerations, as well as pit slope and some of the design considerations. So that work is ongoing, and it's putting ourselves in a position to be able to make an investment decision once the permitting process is being completed. We're anxiously awaiting the additional results from our drill program from last year, and we should be getting those results within the next month or so, and we'll be releasing those details as they become available. And then we expect to start the permitting of the Arctic project, and as I mentioned, we see that starting sometime around March of this year. The other information that will be coming out shortly will be an update of the indicated and inferred resource at the bornite project. And the idea there is to give investors and stakeholders a better idea of how that project holds up, particularly given the current metal price environment, this project, and was looking at the joint venture. Their initial focus was on bornite, and that's where the $30 million in exploration was spent. The focus only turned to Arctic after they saw the robust results from the open pit pre-feasibility study that Trilogy released. So we're excited to get back to talking about bornite and talking about the opportunities in and around the greater Ambler mining district. And Dasha, with that, I would be happy to take any questions that anyone may have. And I want to thank everyone for their time and attention.
Great, thank you so much. So if you do have a question, feel free to submit them now. Tony, what is your outlook on copper and the other metals being developed in your project portfolio?
Yeah, we're really, we can't control the metal prices, and I'm just going to flip back to one of those slides that I had here, which was the slide that just showed the economics of Arctic. And I think the good thing for us is that we're in a really strong position where we've got a very robust project, even at base case prices that are significantly lower than the current price environment. But what I would say is that copper is certainly looking very positive. We seem to be continuing to push higher. It certainly feels like it wants to try to get to that $5 mark per pound. And the other key considerations for us are some of the other metals where zinc, at over $1.60 is performing very well, and gold is continuing to do well at over 1,800, and silver at $24. So by having a polymetallic deposit, it gives us lots of flexibility in terms of when we look at financing options for advancing the project, but it also provides us with a lot of resilience in terms of the NPV and IRR of the project. But we're very bullish on the copper space and the EV fundamentals, and I think you're only just starting to see that in terms of the just the demand that's going to be out there, not obviously just on the vehicle side, but in terms of the infrastructure that's going to be needed. And it's not just North American demand, it's European, it's Asian demand that's going to be increasing quite considerably. And the ability to replace the amount of copper production that is occurring every year is very difficult. And we're also seeing a decrease in the average grade of deposits that are out there. The only exception I would say is the Kamoa-Kakula deposit in the DRC at Ivanhoe. So when we look at our 4.2%, we're not quite at Kamoa-Kakula grades, but we're not far from them. And we're in a different type of jurisdiction than the DRC.
Great, thank you so much. So your GB partner, South 32, has staked some ground outside of the Ambler Metals GB area. What are your views about South 32's larger commitment to the district as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great question. And South 32, first of all, I just want to note that South 32 has committed $200 million to Trilogy in the Ambler mining district already. So the fact that they've reached into their pocket and put that money on the table underscores what they see in terms of the opportunities within the Ambler mining district and the greater district as a whole. And South 32 is, has a number of deposits all over the world. They're in the process of just closing a significant acquisition in Chile, which is an operating copper mine called Cerro Gordo. They're buying 45% for around $1.5 billion. Plus, there's contingent capital that or consideration that could be paid that could take a purchase price close to $2 billion. So these are serious people, and they're very focused on increasing their exposure to green metals. And the fact that they've staked additional ground outside of a JV area, we see it as a very positive development. And I'll tell you why. The first reason is this road, it has to be paid for by companies that are going to be using the road. So if South 32 is in a position where they can find another deposit that's economic and can be developed, they'll help pay for the road, which actually is beneficial for anyone else that's using the road. I think it underscores their view about this area being a district and not just the Arctic mine or the Bornite mine, and the potential for significant additional discoveries in this area. And it's an area that's has been lightly explored, even though it's been known for a long, long time. So we think it's very positive that they've staked this additional ground and that they're moving forward in terms of additional reconnaissance work. And at some point, they'll be looking at doing some drilling there. So it's a very positive development from our perspective.
Excellent, thank you. Robert is asking, he says, I know you have mentioned in the past that companies currently producing seem to have their share prices benefiting from the rise in copper, while Trilogy has hovered around its 52-week low. With the enormous potential Trilogy has, when do you feel this disconnect will start to resolve itself?
It's a great question, and it's in preparation for today. I was looking at the share prices of a number of companies, and I just sort of did a comparison from when things were really sort of low, which was towards the end of March 2020, to today. And Robert's exactly right. In the case of our share price, it stayed fairly flat, where we've seen other companies, whether they're developers such as Western Copper or Filos, see significant increases. In the case of Filos, it's been astronomical, where it's gone from, I think, somewhere around 11 cents or something like, or maybe it it was about $1.10 to $15. So they've seen a tremendous rise, and that's on the back of strong exploration results and the view that that there's a potential for mine development there. And I think our story is exactly the same in that we've had excellent exploration results. 12% copper over 20 meters is phenomenal. And we believe that there's additional opportunities for those type of drill holes in Arctic and hopefully in the surrounding areas. Plus, we've got bornate there, which is 180 million tons at an average grade of 1.6% between the inferred and the indicated and the open pit and the underground. So I think it's one of those things where sometimes people just aren't looking at the story, and whether it's because our timeline is a little further out, whether it's because there's a joint venture partner like South 32 in the mix, and NANA and ADA, and people are thinking about how the road's going to be coming forward. I don't know the specific reasons, but I see this as an opportunity for people to come into the story. Last year, I reached into my pocket and purchased additional shares. I take most of my compensation in equity, and I just increased my equity position and exposure by over 250,000 shares. So I see this as an opportunity for people to come into the story, and I hope that when we look back to this time, we look back next year around this time, that we're able to report significant increases in terms of a share price, because we've got a great story here. We've got high grade. We're in a great jurisdiction.
Great, thank you. What is the significance of your partnership with NANA, who also has a partnership in the Red Dog mine in Northwest Alaska, which is one of the world's largest zinc mines?
Yeah, it's interesting. We get the questions from time to time, whether it's from the media or investors, about our engagement with the native communities in Alaska, and it starts with NANA. We're very fortunate that NANA is our partner, and when I say that, I mean true economic partner. So they're going to have an ownership stake in any of the mines that are developed in the Ambler mining district, whether they take a direct interest or whether they take a net profit interest. They're going to have an ownership stake. And so we're focused on working with NANA to create employment opportunities for NANA shareholders in the district, to ensure that we're mindful of the subsistent concerns that the community has about any mines that are operating in the district, to ensure that we're engaging very closely with the communities as we continue to move either the road or the mine development forward, and that we've got buy-in. And the good thing about NANA and the Northwest Arctic Borough, where the Ambler Mining District is located, is they have a rich mining history. You mentioned Red Dog. Red Dog's been operating for a long time. The community benefits significantly from Red Dog because they're getting royalties, they're getting taxes that they're getting directly into the communities. And they know that right now, as it stands, the Red Dog mine is slated to close unless there's opportunities to extend the mine further somewhere around 2032. So they understand that they need to find other sources of revenue generation in the Northwest Arctic Borough in the district. And they view the Ambler Mining District as an area where there's significant potential for that to happen. So we're very happy to have a partnership with NANA and work very closely with the Northwest Arctic Borough and the communities. But I have to say, we can't lose sight of the subsistence issues, whether it relates to hunting or fishing and the road access. And we have to think about how that road is going to benefit those communities in terms of being able to lower their cost of living, whether it's bringing in supplies and materials into those communities in due course.
Great, absolutely. Kurt is asking, how has the slow geochemical turnaround affected your exploration plans going forward? And do you foresee any relief from the slow turnaround in 2022?
Yeah, I think everybody's been caught by surprise. It's one of those supply chain issues, and this year we would have typically had all of our drill results probably by the end of November, but that didn't happen, and we're still waiting for those results. Normally, what happens is those results get shipped to lab in Vancouver, and the assays get done there. This year, they've sent them as far afield as Mexico, from what we understand. So we're hopeful that there'll be a turnaround next year. I think part of it, though, is it's just due to the fact that 2020 was sort of a missed year for a lot of companies because of the onset of COVID and a lot of companies not drilling, including ourselves. So people are trying to make up for that. And I think that's had an impact. And so hopefully as things return back to normal, we'll be in a position where those results will turn around more quickly. That being said, there's a lot more activity occurring in the great state of Alaska. There's a lot more interest in exploration in the state. And a number of other companies are looking at exploration opportunities in the state, whether it's for other polymetallic deposits or gold deposits. So there's a lot of competition for drilling, and there's a lot of competition for labs. So I hope it gets better, but we'll just have to wait it out if we're not in that situation. But as I said earlier, our program for next year is slated to be a total cost of $28 million. That's going to be funded by the JV, had the $125 million in their bank account. And we're looking at somewhere around 10,000 meters of drilling, with 3 rigs slated to drill between Arctic, the satellite deposits, and hopefully Bornite.
Thank you. Mark is asking, can you give more details on the 2022 non-Arctic drill campaign? Can you give more flavor on which outlying targets you're scout drilling and the rationale behind those choices?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're thinking about right now. So one of the things that we've been doing between Trilogy, South 32, and Ambler is really looking at the exploration strategy going forward. And one of the focuses that we want to have is we've got Arctic that has 43.4 million tons of 4.2%. So it's really about how can we find items that are economic and close to Arctic that can further extend mine life. And so that's really what our focus is on. So we're looking at some of the near area drill targets. And one of the things that we clearly recognized from this field campaign last year was that we need to do a lot more soil sampling, a lot more geophysical work in and around the Arctic deposit to identify areas where we want to drill. So that's going to be a big focus for us. Outside of the area in and around Arctic, which will be the primary focus, we're also looking at the Bornite, Cosmos Hills, Partner Hills area. So this is around the Bornite deposit. And we're looking at the distance. So if you look at the slide that I put up here, the distance between Bornite and Arctic. And in the 1970s, NANA drilled a hole sort of halfway in that area, and it was in mineralization. So we want to revisit that to determine what the connection is between Bornite and Arctic. And when we're looking at the exploration strategy, one of the things that we're thinking about right now is really having it split up, where we have a focus on Bornite, and we've got a team of professionals that are working on that, and we have a focus on Arctic, and we have a team of professionals working on that. And the person that we're designating from a Trilogy side to work on the Bornite deposit is a fellow called David Broughton. For people that are keen on geology, they'll know David. David was previously with Ivanhoe. He's still an advisor to Ivanhoe. He was one of the co-discoverers, Kamoa-Kakula. He sees a lot of similarities in terms of Bornite mineralization with, interestingly enough, what you see in the DRC and what they call Kapushi deposits. So we're excited to have David as part of a team and bringing his intellectual capital to the table as we look at the Bornite side. And then on the Arctic side, we're in the process of putting that team together. And it's really going to be how do we extend mineralization at Arctic and some of the satellite deposits that we've already identified.
Great, thank you. Lewis is asking, when can we expect you are going to start production?
Yeah, it's a number of events that have to occur, and so I think when we look at the timetable, it starts with the permitting process, which we expect to start in March. We see that taking 24 to 30 months. There's one federal permit that require a 404 wetlands permit. The rest of the permits are either state or borough approvals. We don't have any federal lands to deal with, so that makes it a little bit easier. But we're still of the view that it will take 24 to 30 months. That puts us in a position to make an investment decision in and around 2024. And so when we look at the timeline, if we're able to make that investment decision in 2024, then you would start road construction, you would start mine construction simultaneously, with the idea of putting in initially what would be a pioneer road, which would be effectively an ice road, so you can get in access during the winter months and work there. And we see construction of a mine taking somewhere around 3 years. So when we look at the timetable that we're talking about, we see ourselves being in production somewhere around 2028, assuming everything falls into place.
Got it. Thank you. Clive is asking, what are the impacts of inflation for both commodity and labor on your development capital cost?
Yeah, that's something that everyone's focused on right now. Our cumulative capital for the project, including sustaining capital, is just over $1 billion. And those numbers came out in 2020, so we feel pretty good about those numbers. But clearly, there has been some inflationary bumps associated with that. What we're doing as part of the Ambler Metals work at the project is really updating our view of how we look at capital, and we think there'll be some pluses and we think there'll be some minuses. So, net, do we expect costs to be somewhat higher in terms of a capital front? I would expect that they will be, just because of general pressures. The flip side of that is how robust the project is, even at low metal prices, as I showed on the chart, the table earlier, which I'm going to pull up again. When you look at this, and you look at the tremendous increase in the NPV of a project because of changes in metal prices, we've got lots of upside associated with that. That doesn't mean that we're counting on the metal prices to offset any capital costs. We think we have a very robust project to begin with. And I think the biggest benefit that we can bring to this project is really about extending mine life. Because right now we're talking about a 12-year mine life, and anything that we can do to extend that mine life beyond 12 years, so similar to what I was talking about with respect to VMS deposits, can we find satellite deposits, extend that mine life? Is this going to be a cluster, a typical VMS deposit, where there's clusters and other deposits that will be found? The NPV of a project, interestingly enough, when you're using an 8% discount, doesn't get impacted all that much past 12 years. But that's where the real value can be added, extending mine life beyond 12 years, looking at satellite deposits. And people shouldn't forget about bornite. Bornite's composed of essentially two deposits. One is 60 million tons roughly of an underground deposit, which grades somewhere around 3% copper, and then there's 120 million tons at roughly 1%. So there's no value in our share prices being given for bornite right now, and we clearly believe that there's tremendous value given the size and scale of a bornite deposits, and obviously the grades that are there. So that's how we're looking at it at this point. But I don't have any concrete numbers in terms of what inflationary impacts have occurred at the capital level, other than to say that those numbers did come out in 2020, so not that long ago.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And to close up here, Tony, what are your key catalysts you are excited about in the upcoming year?
Yeah, I had them on the slide earlier, and I'll just pull them back up and just make sure everyone has a chance to have a look at them. It's optimization of a feasibility study. That's this ongoing process that Ramsey and his team are undertaking at the Ambler Metals level. So there's lots of work being done on the study front, and we're very excited about the direction that we're going from that perspective. It's about the release of the assay results, obviously from last year's drill program, the commencement of a current campaign, which we would expect to start sometime around May, probably starting to drill in June, from June through August, and then we sort of get back into the cycle of those results coming out. The commencement of a permitting process, that's going to be a huge catalyst for us. We're hoping that that starts in March. As I said, we did a permitting preparedness review just to make sure we could dot the I's and cross the T's in terms of any issues that could come at us. And we've looked at the major areas that we'll be focused on. So we see those as the key catalyst. The other things that I would say is bornite. I don't want people to lose sight of bornite. We're going to be coming out with some news pretty soon about the bornite resource, and I'd encourage people to look at that information and dig into the details a little bit to understand how bornite fits. So those are the key news events for us for the next 6 to 9 months, I would say.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for taking us through your presentation and the live Q&A. And of course, thank you to everyone who joined us today and asked all these great questions. If you do think of a question after the summit, feel free to reach out directly to Trilogy Metals, and they'll be happy to follow up with you. Of course, there's also more information that can be found on their website, trilogymetals.com. And as I said before, the summit has been recorded and will be available to watch afterwards on 6.com. Before I close out, is there anything else that you want to say, Tony?
I just want to thank Six again, Dasha, and thank you for the introduction and the great closing. You could be doing my job. You've got all of the details at your fingertips in terms of trilogymetals.com. So please do visit the website, have a look at the presentation, look who's on the board, look at the management team. And if there are any questions, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to get back to you. And ticker symbol TMQ, trading on New York and Toronto.